Hello, guys. Welcome to Sipping Tea with Sabrina. In just a second, we'll be sharing the tea on mastering bookkeeping essentials for nonprofits. But if you've never met me before, I'm Sabrina, the Dream Team Architect and President and CEO of Building Better Boards. I specialize in building elite leadership teams for corporate and nonprofit boards. And I just realized my jacket may not be just right. And CEOs turning high level potential into extraordinary performance. And I love boards of directors. That is what I do. I'm also an international keynote speaker. I drive revenue, organizational resilience, expert in strategic leadership and governance excellence. And we have with us today, I'm very excited about this. We have with us today Audrey Bradley, an expert accountant. I am going to bring her to the stage. Hey, so
Hey.
this conversation is critical to those wanting to understand mastering bookkeeping essentials for nonprofits, whether you are a nonprofit, a mission driven company, or an association. That is why we have Audrey with us today. So, with that in mind, can you share with the people a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I started out my accounting career straight out of college, got my bachelor's degree in accounting. I had to make the decision of whether or not I wanted to continue moving into the master's and going CPA. After taking a tax class and a finance class, I realized that basic bookkeeping, I really like just making sure the numbers matched, aligned, and I was going to stick with that for my career. So I went straight into corporate out of college, worked in corporate for about 10 years, various positions, various industries, from education to manufacturing to construction. And I just really enjoyed making all those numbers match. They would send us at the homework in college, and you would have to make sure all the numbers lined up. And of course, you reach the end and you're off by a penny. And I'm the one digging in, and I'm like, where'd that penny go? I'm the one stopping on the street to pick up that penny. I love tracking the pennies. So that's what I was doing in corporate. And I had an opportunity to actually start working with a nonprofit close to me, my local church, when they needed a bookkeeper. And I started working with them, really saw the mission, that the drive that they were doing, that they were focused on, and realized, hey, they need help just making sure all the numbers match and that they were being accountable with the money that they were given. So that's how I started bookkeeping on the personal side, directly with business owners and organizational leaders. And from that nonprofit, I was referred to another nonprofit, and it just kind of grew organically from there. So for the past 5 years or so, I've been working directly with small business owners, nonprofits, making sure that their numbers align, all the pennies match. And it's been a pleasure and an honor doing what I do.
Well, as you were doing your spiel and you said, I like the numbers, and I'm like, no, I don't know, because I don't. So many people need what you do, because I'm like, when I did my nonprofit, no, I didn't like the numbers. I didn't light up like you just did when we talked about the numbers. So I'm like that. I'm like, it's a penny. It's fine. And that will probably drive you crazy. So I get it.
Yes, I stay up at night. I'm still figuring out, and then I wake up early in the morning. When I figure it out, I log in. I know I'm supposed to keep boundaries, but they keep caving every time I figure something out.
Right. I just know. So with your extensive background in corporate accounting, you named corporate accounting, you talked about, getting involved with your church, but how has the transition from small business and nonprofit, how has the transition shaped your approach to bookkeeping, because you work from corporate to small business and nonprofit? How's that really affected how you approach bookkeeping?
Absolutely. So when you're working in corporate, your position is really siloed. So in college, you do the whole cycle. You do the AR where you're invoicing people, you do the AP where you're paying bills, you do the reconciliation at the end of the month, and then you make sure the financial reports are in order. So I went from that in college to corporate, you're just doing one activity, AR, or if you move jobs, you're doing AP, but it's not the full cycle. So when I had the opportunity to start working directly with this nonprofit, I was back to doing full cycle. I was the one in charge of making sure all the bills were paid, making sure payroll was processed, making sure that all the money that came in was tracked, making sure it all reconciled at the end of the month. You know, this is a nonprofit. They can't just go, well, we don't know where that $1,000 went. My bad. Somebody needs to figure out where that $1,000 went because they are responsible to their donors. Yeah. So I really enjoyed getting back to basics. What I liked doing in college was making sure everything tied out, that full cycle closed out, and that everything reconciled. And so as I switched from corporate to nonprofit, I really loved going back to the basics, going back to the numbers. And then, as he said, not everyone is geared. You know, usually the organizational leader that starts it, they have this dream, this vision. They don't want to get bogged down into the details, into the numbers. They're like, no, I'm driving here and I need this over here to work because I need my numbers to match. But like, I'm driving, I can't do everything. So I'm coming in as in the sidecar and just saying, hey, these numbers match. And then just tell me where the Amazon purchase went. Tell me what that number was for. And then you can keep driving towards your vision. So I came in and I was really able to see how I can come into any organization and just help, especially with nonprofits, because I see that mission, right, of the local church wanting to reach the community and making sure that they serve their needs. And I get that, you know, IRS wants their penny, wants their dollar. Even on the nonprofit side, you still have compliance to meet. But I don't want to take leadership away from that drive, from that purpose. If I can come in, sidecar, and assist them in making sure that their vision is reached and that the mission is completed, that really fulfills my purpose. And I get to do what I enjoy. Numbers.
Yeah, you enjoy it. I'm telling you. I'm gonna do a little clarifying for the people who don't speak the numbers. You said AR, and I'm gonna show you. I did pay attention when my bookkeeper, my finance person said something. I know this. Oh no, don't judge me if I get it wrong. AR is accounts receivable, and AP is accounts payable.
Yes.
That's all I know.
There you go. Now you're gonna take my job.
They would start talking that stuff, and I'd be like, and just glaze over. But I did pick that up. Thank you for that. So I know that at one point I know that most accountants and bookkeepers like QuickBooks, and I know a lot of nonprofits do QuickBooks. But when you're in their QuickBooks and looking at that stuff, what is the most common financial management mistake you see nonprofits making, and how can they avoid these pitfalls?
Absolutely. So one of the most common ones I see is that they are not reconciling, and nonprofits, for-profits, everyone, right? They're driving towards their mission, and they don't stop and make sure that their numbers are matching to the bank. So a lot of times when I'm going into an accounting system, sometimes they've been sending out invoices, making sure that all their payments are received. You know, it's important, right? I go in and I see this open AR balance of like $500,000. And I'm like, well, has that money been received or not? So then I jump over into their bank account and make sure that the numbers actually match. Like, did you receive that AR, or is it still outstanding? Do we need to follow up and make sure those donors are paying their bills?
Right.
So one of the largest things I do, number one, I go back and see what the last time the accounts were reconciled. And if it's been over a year, that's something I bring up to management and saying, hey, we need to make sure that your numbers match to the bank. Because what they might see in their accounting shows, hey, you got, let's say, $50,000 in the bank. But if we go to the bank statement, it says, well, you only got $5,000. There's a problem.
Yeah, that's a $45,000 mistake somewhere, right?
Yes. Okay. So that's one of the first things I check. And after I check that, then I go into the profit and loss, and I just make sure that all their expenses are showing. So for nonprofits, you want to make sure that all that money you bring in, that you're going out towards your mission. So whenever they apply for a grant, for example, the grant wants to know, okay, well, we want to know where you are spending your dollars. We want to make sure that the mission that you say you're supporting is actually receiving those dollars, and how much, what's the percentage. And, we want to make sure it's not 10-90. We want to make sure it's more like 80-20, and 20 being the administrative portion. So making sure that their profit and loss reflects that. If they aren't tracking, if they don't have an accounting system, or if they don't have anyone actually tracking the expenses to show and reflect that in their reports, then they don't have that available to the grants or to whoever they're writing to request funds. They might know in their head, no, I know where the money's going, but they need to be able to visually show that to whoever they're going to request funding from. And so I go in and make sure that their numbers actually reflect what they are doing as a mission, as an organization.
You said a mouthful right there, because that's the one thing I get. I'm not a grant writer. Let me just say that, because people tend to think that I'm not a grant writer. I know how to do it. It gives me no joy. But that is one of the reasons why most people, to be grant ready, you got to have a budget. You got to have those bank statements. It is not just a Excel sheet that you hand that has 3 lines because it's all in your head, right? It is very complex. So nonprofit financial reporting, it can be complex, especially if you're getting those grants, or you want to get those grants, or get in a position to get those grants. So what strategies do you recommend for organizations to ensure transparency, for one, but at the same time, they need to meet those regulatory requirements?
Absolutely. So if they are not working with an accounting system, I always recommend that they get signed up immediately, whether that's QuickBooks, Wave, Zero. There are so many accounting systems out there. I just say pick one, pick the best one for you. Go and price shop, make sure that it has the features that you need. And what you need is a report that's going to show you what you brought in and then the expenses that came out. That's called the profit and loss report, also known as statement of activity. And we love to just make it more complicated and call it tons of different things. But that's the basic report that you need to show. From that profit and loss, you need to be able to show this is the funds that we brought in under, let's call it a specific grant number 1. So grant number 1 is going to this designated industry, or this market, this people in need. We need to be able to show that grant number 1, especially if it's a restricted fund, we need to make sure that those dollars went directly to that population of need, that when we signed up for the grant, we said, okay, we're going to take these dollars in and we're going to serve that specific target market. So that profit and loss needs to show that. There's several different ways they can do that, whether it's through a project-based, speaking directly, if you're using QuickBooks Online, they have a projects where you can track specific projects and show project 1, 2, or 3, where those funds came in and exactly where those expenses went to per project. And you can do it that way, or QuickBooks also has a class feature. And again, it does the same thing. You can class specific classes. For example, let's say you have a spring event, a fall event, a summer event, right? Those are 3 different projects or 3 different classes. You would make sure all the income for summer is marked under summer, and then you would make all the expenses for that summer event marked under summer, so that you can pull a report specific to, these are our summer income, this is our summer expense, and hopefully we made a profit on that, and we can use that profit towards the designation that we wanted to go towards. So hopefully that wasn't complicated. Let me know.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. And you said profit and loss. Now I'm going to throw out an acronym, because when they most of the time, profit and loss, I'm actually impressing myself. Hold on, I know this one. You would normally say a P&L, right?
Yes, I would.
Because if he asks me, what can I have a P&L report? And I'm like, what's that? That's the profit and loss report. I had to learn that one. So thank you. Thank you very much. I'm actually a little impressed with myself right now. I know that this is hard for people who don't think like this. And that was one of my issues. And a lot of times I do run into people who don't think like this. They don't have that strong financial background. So how can nonprofit leaders who may not have a strong financial background better understand and engage with their organization's financial data?
Absolutely. Just be open-minded and be willing to delegate. I know coming in, like I said, you are driving that mission. You don't have to know how to do it all. Like, I don't know how to drive a 16-wheeler truck, but if I want to purchase a piano, that 16-wheeler is going to bring it to my house. So just make sure and delegate appropriately. And part of delegating is going back and following up. So if you don't know, you're going to bring in a bookkeeper or an accountant like myself, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to ask them questions. You're going to say, okay, what's this P&L you're talking about? Show me where my money went. And then they need to be able to explain to you, either looking at the report and showing you in detail, or just via email, but they need to explain it so you understand. If they can't explain it so you understand, then you just need to keep looking until you find one that does explain it appropriately. So part of delegating, you take it off your plate, but that doesn't mean that you take it off and you ignore it. So many times, some of the clients I run into, they have delegated, but they don't do the follow-up. I think it's called trust but verify, right? So you want to trust someone to do it, but you also want to verify they know what they're doing. If they can't answer basic questions, they might not be the bookkeeper or the accountant that you need to work with.
Right. You said some great, you said some good things here. And I just want people to know that are joining us. If you're just joining us, first of all, welcome to the broadcast. But we're currently talking about mastering bookkeeping essentials for nonprofits. And we've covered some good things. Look, I'm just going to do the highlight. You got to have a bookkeeping system. That is the highlight. And once you get the bookkeeping system, if you don't know how to enter the data and that's not your strong suit, hire someone that does, because this is something that you're going to need. And what I hear Audrey saying is hire someone that can do this, especially if you want to get yourself in a position where you want to be grant ready, in a position where you want to take major gifts, because people want to know that the money that they gave you, their hard-earned money, is being well taken care of. And so you have to look at it from that perspective. Now, I will say this, she did not endorse any particular software, just get a software. I will say that TechSoup, if you go and join TechSoup, they have discounts to many of the different softwares, financial software. So go in, do a little homework. So here's a question I have for you. In your experience, what are the key financial metrics that nonprofit boards should be monitoring regularly? And why are these particularly important?
Absolutely. So one we've already mentioned, we've already gone over, it's the profit and loss, the P&L. As I mentioned, there was another name. If you are a nonprofit, it's called a little different because you are a nonprofit. So it's not the profit and loss, so to speak. It's called the statement of activity. And like I said, we just threw that one out there just to make it a bit more complicated for people.
Yeah, I've heard of that one before. I didn't know they were the same. That's good. I learned something. Okay.
Yes. It's the same name, and what it does is it tracks your activity. It makes sure that the dollars that you bring in covers the expenses that go out. And so whether it's the executive director or the board itself, you need to make sure that your organization is healthy, and making sure it's healthy means that you are covering your expenses. So each month for my clients, I send out a profit and loss report showing them what came in for the month, what left for the month, and their net income. And then the other one I send out that's less spoken about is also the balance sheet. Again, for nonprofits, it's called the statement of financial position because it lets them know what your position is. This one on the balance sheet tracks what assets you have, your bank accounts, your accounts receivable, the money that your donors have pledged to pay you. It may not be there yet, but it tracks what they have pledged so that you know, okay, in 6 months down the road, I should have enough money to cover my bills. It tracks your liabilities. So if you bring in any loans or any payables, if you have any buildings or mortgages, anything like that. Again, the balance sheet is going to show you, okay, in 6 months, I need to have enough to cover that mortgage payment. And then it tracks your net activity over the years. So between the profit and loss, which is a quick shot of how you're doing today. The balance sheet kind of shows you how you will do in the future. Do you have enough money to continue? If you have a budget for $50,000 for the year, do you have that in your bank account to cover? Or do you need to start doing additional fundraising in order to grow and bring in that additional revenue?
And let me tell you something. If you're not sharing that with your board, then you're missing a huge opportunity to engage them in the fundraising process. They are visual, they're human beings, so they are visual. And so you have to make that data and those numbers come alive for them and have those reports. So both of those reports, so they can see, oh, we do need to fundraise because we have this gap. If you're not doing that, all they're hearing is, I need you to fundraise, 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 but you're not sharing with them the why or what position you're in. So that is so key. So with the shifting, with the increasing shift towards digital operations, how can nonprofits leverage technology to streamline their bookkeeping process and improve financial oversight?
Absolutely. So this is one I struggle with myself, even though I am a virtual bookkeeper. I
Mhm.
still struggle to learn everything new that's hitting the web right now. There's so many new things, new features. For example, I learned last year about QuickBooks. Not QuickBooks, sorry, Google Ads, that they have actual ads that they offer to nonprofits free of charge. They just need to apply and receive, ad money, and then you're able to go ahead and market your nonprofit. And I was like, that's free? Google? Like the Google that we all go to when we have a question? I was like, yeah, that's okay. Well, yeah, definitely. So I added that. You already mentioned TechSoup. That's another one I always recommend whenever I'm talking to a nonprofit, because they can save you money. And if you want to make sure that more money goes towards your mission and towards what you're driving towards, then it's always best to look for discounts and coupons. I use AI, ChatGPT. I just type in, hey, what do I need? What's new hitting the market? Tell me what I need that I don't know already. And it's an AI, right?
Mhm.
They aren't fully about to replace us yet, but it
Right.
tells me the new things out in the industry. And then I can do a further research and bring better options to my clients. One of the things that specific to QuickBooks, one of the things I always mention, if you have QuickBooks, they have an option where you can take a picture of the receipt, you can send it in, and then it's stored forever. Because
Mhm.
I was like, I was going to take good care. I took all my receipts, I stored them in envelopes, came back 3 months later, and you couldn't see the writing. It wasn't
Yeah.
open to air or anything. So we got to make sure that to digitize what you can. So taking a picture, emailing it in, that's super easy. That's something efficient. And that's, again, another thing that I recommend to all my clients as they come in.
Yeah. That's
Let's
good. And
just
as I
take a
glance to
picture.
the yeah, I glanced to the left, to the right, and because I have a drawer full of receipts. So don't judge. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm
That's how I started too. I didn't know. So as you learn and grow, and as you are out in the market more, just keep your eyes and ears open and be open-minded to the new possibilities. Those are just a few things that I've learned briefly over my years, and just being aware. I try and stay up to date. I'm in a lot of the Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, making sure that the nonprofits, what they need, how I can meet that need. So if you are in your community, in your organization, just keep your eyes and ears open to what they need, and then see how you can match that need, possibly with technology. But that's definitely an area that I'm still growing and learning in myself.
Yeah, yeah. So we briefly talked about grant management and fundraising, but those are crucial for nonprofits. So what
Mhm.
bookkeeping, and you kind of talked about it, but what other bookkeeping best practices would you recommend to effectively track, and not only track, but track and report, especially on restricted funds?
Yes, especially restricted, because they when you apply for a restricted, that's towards something designated, and then you got to make sure that when you receive the money, it goes out only to that designated purpose. So overall, your organization might have software, might have contract labor, might have other needs that group in with the common general fund. The best way I've seen to track those restricted funds is just set up a separate bank account for it.
Hmm.
And when you receive that money, just okay, $800, $1,000, $15,000, whatever that restricted portion is, put it to the side, separate bank account. And then all those expenses from the separate bank account, you can assign, again, I mentioned a project or a class base or a tag. You want to make sure all those expenses, again, are going towards that restricted purpose and that you're able to show that it went to the restricted purpose on your bookkeeping reports. So the best way I've seen, keep it as simple as possible, separate it, physically separate it into a separate bank account, and then track it via a class or via a project.
Yeah. So I got a question because I remember when I sat in that seat as a CEO, I had like 3 bank accounts, but my operating account, right, was still, I had grants within the operating account that were restricted. And then I had an endowment account. And then I had a capital campaign account.
Okay.
So even within my operating account was some grant restricted funds. Are you suggesting it's a best practice to have how many accounts? I guess that's where my mind is going. Like if I'm sitting there, how many accounts should I really have?
So when I say separate into a separate account, I'm not saying a new bank account for every restricted, just have one designated for those restricted grants. So however many restricted grants you might have, they just go into, let's call it a bank account B instead of bank account A.
Got it.
And then so your main operating account, bank account A, you pay money out of there, but then you just reimburse from bank account B for any restricted portion. And then that way you're just keeping it as simple as possible, as clean as possible. Anything that comes out is paying for this restricted purpose.
Okay. I think I didn't do that. But we did all right. We got our audits and we did our 990s and everything was good. But that is good. It just seems like, ooh, that's a lot of count. But thank you for clarifying that. You did a good job on that. So looking
I
ahead,
will say, not to interrupt, there's a lot of different ways I've seen. As long as you pick one method and then you stay with it. What I've seen a lot is when that new person comes in, if they don't know that that's what you're doing, then accidentally, of course, they are not going to follow it. So if you have a process that works for your organization, write it down and then just make sure everyone sticks to it.
yeah, thank you. Those SOPs, standard operating, see, I did it too. Standard operating procedures are so important. And what I realized, just something you just said, is most nonprofits don't write it down. And that's where it gets really kind of crazy when someone transition and transactions, transition
Yeah,
and
transition.
out. There you go. So here's my final question, and there are some comments. I want to make sure people get a chance to, get their questions answered by you.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, what emerging trends? I know you say you use chat and all that to look for some trends, but what emerging trends do you see in nonprofit financial management, and how can organizations, really prepare for those changes?
Yes, absolutely. So economy affects us all, whether it's personal or nonprofits. All businesses have to make sure that they are tracking, that they have a budget that meets the goal for the organization. And then once you have that budget, let's track and compare, make sure month by month, are we ready to meet that goal? Are we going to meet that budget? Do we need to do additional fundraising? As the economy hopefully improves, because I'm always hopeful for the brighter future, but hopefully the economy improves. But right now, living in reality, you have to realize that people are tightening their wallets. They are, again, making sure that what they spend money on really aligns with their purpose and their mission in life. So if you do have donors donating to you, that's wonderful. Just make sure to account for those dollars so that you can show those donors, hey, you donated to us. Thank you so much for supporting our cause. This is how we spent your money. And whether that's, sending out brief announcements every quarter or every month, or just sending a quick reply when they donate to you, if you have that availability. And then looking for additional streams of revenue. Don't just go with that one source. I mean, if you have a millionaire donor, wonderful, absolutely. Continue to thank them, but continue looking for additional revenues, because if they leave, you don't want your main fundraising source to dry up. You want to have alternative sources of income.
Yep. I thank you for saying that. I can't stress that enough. That's coming from someone who is degreed in this. No more than I'm gonna. This is the rule that I had that was hard and fast. No more than 20% of my revenue will come from one source. I
Mhm.
always looked at it like a stool, like a three-legged stool. And if one of the legs was too short or too long, my dog, y'all, the stool was going to fall down. And so I constantly, when you talk about P&L, statement activities, looking future, that's why I took that data to my board because
Mhm.
we monitored that. My board and I were like, no, grants getting too big. We got to do something else.
Mhm.
We gotta balance this. If we're getting this huge grant, look, sometimes you might get this huge grant and you're very happy, but it's gonna be like, oh, now 35% of our budget comes from one source. So what do we need to do? We need to increase that fundraising goal. That don't mean we get to sit back and relax
Mhm.
and say, "Woo, we cover it now." No, no more than 20%. So I get really passionate about that. So let me go and see what questions I have. I see some, so I'm going to hit this so we can get that going. Oh, it's Rona. Rona likes to make comments. She says she has a full desktop of receipts too. Don't judge us.
Hey, you're keeping your receipts. That's first wonderful in and of itself. So no judgment from me at all.
And so what are some of the other great uses for AI when it comes to bookkeeping? If you're not strong in this area, and
Mhm.
what are some of the other usage for AI that you think that will help people kind of like us?
Absolutely. So I've heard that AI can be trained as a marketing tool. So if you just go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, I want to market my nonprofit," it's not going to give you very good results. But I have received offers from people who have trained AI specifically, whether it's targeting bookkeeping or targeting grant writing. You have to train it what to say. Like I said, AI is not about to overtake us. We all still have jobs. AI is not there yet. But if you train it well enough, and if you're in there every day and making sure that, hey, this is my nonprofit, this is the target people, and then you kind of train it what your tone is, it can help
Mhm.
you in marketing to your specific target audience,
Okay.
making
So,
drafting ads or marketing speech. Because I work on the numbers side. I'm not really good with the speaking side. Like I want to help people with their numbers, and I say AI. How do I say that in like a professional way that makes
right,
sense to everybody else? So
right.
you have to train it.
Yeah.
Um,
So Rhonda had a good question here because you're the number side. She said, and
but
maybe in looking at the numbers, maybe there might be something here. So I'm going to ask this. So what is your approach to helping nonprofits reach their financial goals?
absolutely.
You're
So
looking at the books so you can see where money is coming in and where their strength is and what they can lean
mhm,
into. I'm sorry, I'm answering it for you, but my mind is going like,
right,
I have some
you're
inside
already
data
solving the
on that
problem.
nonprofit.
Yes.
So answer that question. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example of a client that started working with me, and he was losing money. He was already in the red, and he said, "I don't know where I could save money. Like, show me where my numbers, show me where my money's going. I don't understand. I bring in so much." And he did bring in a lot of money. So I pulled his profit and loss and I went through it line by line. And I said, well, you're paying this, whether it's Calendly or some other software, you're paying them 3 times in the same month. Do you need 3 different subscriptions? And he's like, oh no. I was supposed to cancel those other two. So I was like, oh, that's going to save you about $50 a month. And then looking at every subscription, do you need that level? Again, going back to QuickBooks, I work with QuickBooks online a lot, so that's usually my example. They have like 4 different subscription levels. Are you paying the lowest one that you need? You don't need the golden ticket one if you only need basic features. So, I've gone into a client's books and they've been paying over $100 a month. And I'm like, well, you only need to be paying the $20 a month one. Again, that's $80 a month. That's what, 960 over the year. So by going in and looking at the detail line by line, again, they are driving towards the mission. So they might not be looking at the detail level, but I'm in it every day as I do their bookkeeping. So I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I saw Dropbox already come through. Yeah, why does he have 3 subscriptions for that? And then I also pull what's called a profit and loss by percentage. So we go again looking at the overall advertising. So if advertising is 50%, like you're spending half of what you bring in on advertising, is it increasing your income by that much? Because if it's not, then why are you spending so much on advertising? I'm like, well, how are you generating your dollars? Are they coming through Facebook? Because if so, then we want to keep those ad dollars going to Facebook. If you're going through Google and your website's not bringing in the dollars, then we can stop that advertising right there. So by looking at where your dollars are coming in and how much you're spending on bringing those dollars in, and then sometimes, unfortunately, it might be your contract labor, your employees, your payroll. For that client that I was mentioning, his payroll was 60%. And I said, so how much are they bringing in that you are giving them 60%? It seems like they are not bringing in enough revenue to cover what.
I think we might be having a technical difficulty.
Oh no.
Yeah, now I can hear you now.
Hear me?
That was really good information. We got it right at the end. I think that's really good information, and I think we don't think about that. And I agree with Ron. That's definitely sound advice that you just gave. You know, I probably okay. So this is another question that we field, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And the question is, do you do audits? Like if I sent you my dang.
Well, sorry. Let me finish the question.
So if I sent you my bank statements and you looked at them and said, for the year, you said, Sabrina, yeah, you're spending a lot on subscriptions. Those type of touch-in audits, not like the full like audit.
Okay.
Do you do something like that?
I don't offer that service, but it is something I do for my cleanup clients.
Fine.
So, for example, I just finished the year cleanup. We had our review meeting, and going over it, I pulled that same percentage and I said, well, you're doing great here, but this line's not so much because, you know, your supplies and materials that don't contribute towards your income. So it's not something I do separately just because it does take a lot of involvement. If I'm not the one managing your books, I don't want to trust that someone else put the numbers in the same category. And I could be dissing on one line that's very important, but it might be labeled wrong just because I wasn't the one to assign it to that expense line.
One last question for Sabrina. This is a Sabrina question because I always struggle with this. I never understood. Okay, so I get a virtual bookkeeper, right? Hire you as a bookkeeper. I still got to scan these receipts that's in my drawer and get them to you.
Yes.
Okay. That's just what we got to do, right?
Yes. But it's just an initial burden. Right now, they're all in your drawer. So, 2 or 3 hours gets them out of your drawer once they are digital and into G Drive, Google Drive, or Dropbox, or wherever you want to store them digitally. Then they're done.
Okay. So how does that work with your clients? So I hire you, and then every month you give a deadline of when the receipts have to be dropped into a Google Drive. What's that look like? I'm asking for the people and for me too.
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example from one of my current clients. So his credit card and his bank account are linked, but they reconcile. Their statements come out at different times during the month. So whenever I go in and make sure the receipts match, I give it about a month for him to enter all of his receipts. And then I say, okay, this receipt hasn't come in, this receipt hasn't come in, this receipt hasn't come in. So I give you usually about a month time. And then depending on your preference, but most of my clients, they're super busy. They're out serving their clients because I work mostly with service-based and nonprofits. So I don't really press hard on them until the end of the year. And then I remind them, listen, it's not me that wants this. It's your tax accountant. And you know how much money you pay them. So let's go ahead and get this taken care of so you don't have to pay them extra in order to get your tax work done. So I don't really push hard on my clients until the end of the year.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, because I know it's a problem out here for all of us in this business world, whether you are a not-for-profit business or a for-profit business. It's a struggle. And I
Mhm.
thank you for joining us on this stage to talk to us about this. Um, I do want to say that if you need any help with engaging your board in fundraising, that's where I come in, and you can visit my website at buildingbetterboards.com. Don't ask me nothing about what Audrey, that's what she does, and she's very good at that. So with that in mind, I want to thank you. I want you to share with us how can people get in contact with you, and any final words or thoughts that you may have.
Absolutely. Well, first, just thank you so much for having me on. It's fun talking about this because I love training and showing people what's possible with their books. I know it's super depressing, again, having those receipts on your desk, but I'm like, no, here's the goal, here's the vision, here is what we're going to get to. It's off your desk, saved digitally, and everybody is happy and all is at peace with your world. So thank you so much for having me. You can definitely reach me. My email is office@abradleybookkeeping.com. There's a chat here. I don't know if I can stick it in the
Yes.
chat. Okay. And then my website is abradleybookkeeping.squarespace.com. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions that I wasn't able to answer. I'd love to talk with you. Oh, and if I should have put my free consult in there. I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I should have had this prepared.
It's okay. Put it in there. And what I'm going to do as she's doing that is I'm going to make sure, if you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, or you're sending in the newsletter, you will get access to all the email, office at abradleybookkeeping.com, website abradleybookkeeping.squarespace.com. And then I just heard you can set up a free consult, and we have the Canely link where you can set that up. I might have to set myself up one, although I feel like you did a very good job telling me what I need to do. Now I just got to get my mind right and reach out to you and get this going. That's what I feel like right now. You did a very good job. So thank you so very much. And that is Sipping Tea with Sabrina. Y'all be blessed. Have a great time. Hopefully, we get this done, and we will see you later. Bye bye.